So the floor's all yours, Claudine.
Good afternoon, all. Staff Sergeant Claudine Martin, and I'm the Chief Clerk at 11 Infantry Brigade in Aldershot. Judging from my accent, you can tell I'm from the Caribbean. I'm from Jamaica, and I immigrated to the UK 19 years ago. Next slide, please, Kate. Yeah, just going back to what I said previously, I am originally from Jamaica, judging from my accent. When I immigrated 19 years ago, I started a college course in East London doing IT. I was going to college, and I think most people can say at the age of 21, some people are just finishing off university. Some have just started, some doing apprenticeship. But I had my first child at 21. I had my son, Chizine. By then, I knew my path in life changed. I knew I had responsibilities. I knew I had to do more. So I was speaking to a high school friend of mine that I went to school back with in high school. And she was telling me that she was in the army. And I was like, I wanted to learn more because she was quite a very girly girl. And I'm thinking my perception at the time wasn't that certain people wouldn't be in the army as a female. She educated me. She told me what the army was all about. She sold it to me, and I decided that, right, I'm going for it. So I joined the army in 2006. In my next slides, I'll go more in depth about my career journey so far. Then in 2011, I had my second child while serving. My first one was before I joined. So I had my second child while serving, which I'll talk a bit about my experience of having a child while serving in the army. And about what I do, apart from being a soldier outside of work, I'm a passionate mentor. I'm a mentor for a program called Fast Forward 15, which is a program that aims to encourage and inspire women in the hospitality and related industry. I've just recently signed up to be a mentee for the Women in Defense Mentoring Program, which will launch tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to that. Next slide, please, Kate. So a bit, how did my career journey started? So in 2006, once I've went through the process of being selected to join the army, I started my training in my basic training in Purbright. At the time in training, I remember I was the only mother. I was 22 at the time when I joined. I was in a cohort of about 40 girls. Wasn't the oldest, but I was in the bracket of one of the oldest. Most of them were teenagers, 17, 18, 19, quite young girls. It was different. It was challenging. And I would say, apart from being a mother of two, that was one of the most challenging things I've done in my life. The physical side of it, I was okay with my fitness, but after having a child, having a 1-year-old, the weight carrying was a bit too much, but it was a bit challenging. It was new to me. My body was new to all of that. So I had to adapt to that. After I finished my basic training in January 2007, I then moved on to my phase 2 training in Winchester, where I trained as a clerk, which is what we know, the Army's HR department of the Army. I did that for 8 weeks. And then I moved on to the 1st Battalion Irish Guards. That was my first posting in Aldershot. I arrived there, and within 2 weeks, they told me that I'm deploying to Iraq. So I went out with them to Iraq in 2007. I will go more into that later on when I talk about my overseas deployments. The Irish Guards, the guards, they tend to move just to share the ceremonial duties like every 2 to 3 years. So in 2009, after doing 2 years with the Irish Guards, they moved to Windsor. And at the time, I was having some medical issues with my son. So I stayed in Aldershot, and then I did a year with the Coldstream Guards. After the Coldstream Guards, then I moved on to 104 Military Working Dog Squadron. That is in Oakham, and that was a singleton post in Oakham, which is now, the regiment itself is now posted there, but I was just a clerk there at that squadron. After finishing that squadron, I went on to 22 Engineer Regiment, which is still one of my best posting in Perm Down. I did from 2012 to 2015. Following 22 Engineer Regiment, I went to RMS, Royal Military Academy Sandhurst in 2016. I did 2 years then, and then I moved on to the Ministry of Defence, where I worked as a PA to Major General Neil Sexton, who is currently the Army Director of Engagement and Communications. And then my final posting of now at 11 Brigade. So you can see throughout my career, I've been to a lot of places after serving 15 years in the Army. So looking at my deployment, so alluding back to what I said previously about the Irish Guards, that's my first operation and my only operation. I deployed in 2007. I remember I was new, straight from phase 2 training, young private, didn't know what to expect. It was at the time when I would say in 2007, it was a bit hostile back in Iraq. I went out and I can say that it was a good experience, not from being in the Army for not that long, not having friends in the Army, but I've made some good friendships while I was there in Iraq, still quite close to people that I made friends with back then. And the experience from it, I've learned a lot. It's still my only tour, but I've learned a lot from doing that deployment. Also, I did 3 months in Cyprus, working on the decompression team in 2013. The brigade at the time was looking for an FSA. I was a corporal at the time and they needed a staff sergeant. I wanted the experience. I heard about Cyprus. It's sunny, it's on the beach, and I wanted to do it. So I went out as an acting sergeant and I did that role as the cashier there. I also wanted to explore a bit of a sporty side. I've always enjoyed netball while I was in high school. So I also went to Cyprus in 2014 to play netball. And I did a battlefield study in France in 2014 while I was at 22 Engineer Regiment. I also did an adventurous training in Germany when I was in Sandhurst. That was brilliant. Complete Bavaria, I would say, in the summer, it's brilliant. I enjoyed it. I would definitely recommend it. I also did adventurous training in Italy. I went to Naples. That was also a good experience. And then I also went back a year later to do another battlefield study in Sicily. I would definitely recommend Sicily. Outside of the mainland, it's a beautiful place and it's got a rich history of the war. And I would definitely recommend trying that. Next slide, please, Kate. So in my 15 years, next week is my 15-year point of being in the Army, and I've done some amazing things since I've been in the Army. So when I look at the things that, looking back at my history and the things that I've achieved in the Army, of course, I'm going to be proud of my Iraq medal. It was as what I've said previously, is my first and only tour. So I was proud when I received my medal from my tour. I got my promotion to Lance Corporal in 2008, followed by 2 years later, I got my corporal. And then 5 years later, I got my sergeant in 2016. And last year, I promoted to staff sergeant in 2020. Whilst I was at the MOD as a PA, I won PA of the Year 2019 with PA Life, which is a PA network for PAs across the UK. And then last year and also this year as well, I was shortlisted for a Women in Defence Award. And I was also named a Top 100 Rising Star in Defence for We Are the City Awards 2021 this year. So looking at all of this, I have enjoyed a lot of stuff. I've had some amazing experiences in the military going along so far. But as we know, my grandmother always says that in life, it's like a roller coaster. Nothing is ever smooth sailing. And I've had some challenges and also some setbacks in my career history. So the first point is with my challenges that I've experienced, I had a very difficult posting in 2010 to 2012. So when I was at the military working dogs, when I said I had my child in the Army, so that was my second child, but the only child that I had while serving. It was a very difficult time. It was a singleton post. I never had my HR support like I would normally have in a unit. So I was just on my own. I felt that the unit at the time, because they were all dog handlers. I think they were quite they were quite close with each other, and I felt like I was the outsider. And then when I got pregnant that same year, um, I felt a bit of like a distant, like I was treated a bit differently in terms of the sense that they never had an HR that they could deploy to Afghanistan with. So I never deployed with them, obviously, because I was pregnant. So it was a very difficult posting for me at the time. I think I was almost approaching my 5-year point in the army. And I remember at that point, I felt like this is the end for me. I no longer want to be part of it. But I went on maternity leave, came back, went to 2-2 Engineer Regiment, and then it was different then. One of my biggest setbacks, though, that I've had since I've joined, since I've been in the military, I was diagnosed with systemic lupus back in 2016. And for those who's never heard of lupus, quite often I get asked the question, what is lupus? Lupus is an autoimmune illness, and this is where your body attacks. This is where your immune system attacks your body. So it can attack anywhere, at any part of the body. It can be from your head all the way down. It's a systemic condition. For me, that was a daunting experience because I wasn't sure what was the future of my career. So far, where I was going to go. Once I was diagnosed, I remember having a chat with the medical officer at the time. She said there was a possibility of medical discharge because it all depends on how I was affected by it. I remember at the unit that I was when I was diagnosed. I remember that experience with the boss at the time, where once he knew about my illness, it was a case of I felt like I didn't get that support. It was a case of it was like he was putting me through the medical system to go through the medical system where I eventually would have been medical discharge as opposed to giving me the support. I had a different boss, and I've always talked about that person. That person came along and supported me massively. That person read a lot into what my illness was about, tried to understand what lupus was, gave me that support, and sort of included my debt members to understand what I was going through. We did a lot of fundraising together. We did a lot of activities together for that charity. So that for me, even though it was a setback, having the support of my chain of command, I think is crucial for me to this day why I'm still serving. With that, with being diagnosed with an illness, any illness, doesn't matter if it's lupus or an illness that is long-term, as lupus is not curable, so it's a long-term condition, it means that I'm restricted to certain overseas jobs. I've always had an aspiration to serve at an embassy or an overseas loan service posting. But with that, that would restrict me from getting that posting due to the care and the treatment that I get from the NHS. The Army probably wouldn't see it viable to assign me to those sort of posts. But that's just in life. Life is that in general, things do happen. There's those setbacks and all those challenges. But I can say, apart from those challenges and those setbacks, I've had some amazing experiences serving in the military. Next slide, please, Kate. So finally, from a female's perspective of what it's like now serving in the military, I can say, and I know a lot of females probably would agree with me in saying that the Army is not what it used to be. 15 years ago when I joined, things have changed massively. There's a lot of things have changed. I don't know if you might see now, they've changed the regulations in terms of female hair, the Afro hair. So women now are supposed to have to be tucking their hair in a bun. When you're in normal military working dress, you can wear your hair now in a ponytail, which I think that was welcomed good news for a lot of females because of the challenges of, especially for someone who's got really long hair, the challenges of having their hair constantly in a bun. They've also looking at, no, I know they're looking at the female uniform because a lot of females used to complain about the uniform because it's like they were made specifically for men. They didn't take into consideration the body shape. So they're now reviewing female uniforms. They've also put in place females can now get issued sports bra and also sanitary items for when they deploy. When I first joined, we never had that. They never take into consideration stuff like that. Also, I know they're looking at the body armor to take into consideration our build and all the stuff that we do as females that is particularly good. So compared to when I joined to where it is now, it has come a long way in terms of the future for females and how it's more diverse and more inclusive. There are a lot of various networks out there. As Nikki mentioned previously, she mentioned about the BAME. There's the BAME network. They've got the Army Service Women's Network. Also recently, Lance Corporal Natasha Day has also formed the Breastfeeding Network, which I've seen on the internet that it's the support that they're getting, and a lot of women who are breastfeeding, they then have that support and have that network that they can turn to, which I think it's really good. So it's more an inclusive army, I can say from my experience from when I first joined. However, there are still some issues. I know a lot of women still complain about certain things like harassment that's been around for a long time. And I know some women still complain of experiencing those sort of things. There's one point I remember I had to collate some points for the brigadier, and there was a few points that some ladies, I think, mentioned. And I'm not sure, Nikki, if this is something that you've come across, but when they're deploying, they've also mentioned about the difficulty trying to access contraception when they go on tour, like, for example, the implant or the pill, because they wouldn't do it through their med center, but would do it through a sexual health clinic, especially if they've, sorry, my mute went on. They've been having that sort of difficulty accessing it. So there are still things out there that's still an issue, but like I said previously, compared to when I joined to where it is now, it's way more inclusive, a way more welcoming place. Still, there's things to improve on, but I can say from my perspective as a female soldier, if someone comes to me now and say, I've got my daughter or my niece who wants to join the army, what's your advice? I would be brutally honest to say, yes, I would definitely recommend it. If it's something that they want to do, or they want to join, there are many opportunities out there. It's way different from what it was before, and there's a lot of things that they can get out of it, and a lot of benefits. A lot of work has been put in place to make it the army that it should be. So that's my point of view in terms of what my experience has been in the military. Thank you very much for listening. And if you've got any questions, please feel free to put them through. Thank you.